Good morning everyone and welcome back to the garage. Today we're working on the BMW again. It's the last video on it probably for now. And what I want to do today is sort out some running issues. So this bike starts fine, but it runs for a few seconds and then stalls. And you can keep it revved, you can keep it running, or you can warm it up, but it doesn't make much difference. And while you ride it, every time you stop or just pull the clutch in, the engine will die unless you keep it revved. And also while you're going constantly, it seems to bog down or just lose power. So this is what I want to take care of today. It seems to me like it's running lean, but we're going to try and have a look and see what's going on. So first thing I want to do is take all the plastics off. So one thing I noticed pretty much straight away was that this bike is overfilled with oil. So the oil level is pretty much in the middle of the side glass now with the bike cold. But as soon as you run it up to temperature and then let it sit for a bit, you notice it's a lot higher than it should be. So I'm guessing whoever filled this didn't know the exact procedure to do that. So we're gonna address that a bit later. But one thing I noticed, the throttle body is all covered in oil. So it's very likely that oil's been getting in the airbox, and although I think it's not causing our issue, it's still something you don't really want to happen. So yeah, I'm gonna take the oil tank off for now, and I'll set the correct oil level later. But yeah, for now let's go further with the teardown and see what we find. So first thing, let's see how it's running. And it does that consistently. Every time the revs drop a bit, it just dies. Now if you're asking yourself, I've already tried the classic method of resetting the ECU, but that made no difference. So I'm sure there's something else going on here. So before I dig too far, I just want to hook up a scan tool to this, see if there are any codes stored, try to read any data bits, see if I can get a fuel trip, maybe get an O2 sensor reading and confirm this is running lean. Maybe I can even find a fuel pressure value, which would be great. So yeah, that might give me a starting point, but I want to do that now before I take too much stuff off. So I failed to read any codes, mainly because I don't have a designated motorcycle scanner. I just use my automotive ones, which work reasonably well so far, but either this bike has a problem or my scanners just don't work with this. So yeah, let's carry on trying to diagnose this the old-fashioned way and see what we can find. So we're looking at the airbox now. This is the front bit. The orange section in the middle is the air filter, and it's actually missing a clip right here, but it should be fine. You can just pull this out. It's got a flow sensor here, which is a bit dirty, but not too bad. Some signs of hot glue or something. I'm not sure what that's about. So we're just gonna unplug this for now. The air filter looks reasonably clean. So there is actually a mist of oil everywhere in the airbox, even a few puddles. So I've got the spark plug out, and it actually looks fairly good. It's I would say that's a pretty normal color for it. So I'm just gonna give this a good clean. So obviously some mud has gotten into there. Looks like there's some copper grease on the threads, which I'm gonna clean off. Now, since I've noticed this, I should mention a long time ago I used to put copper grease on plugs, but on modern plugs they have a special coating which the manufacturers are saying it could cause a galvanic reaction with the copper grease. So copper grease on spark plugs could do more damage than good. So I cleaned the spark plug and put it back in, cleaned the airbox and everything and put it back on. And the bike runs about the same. It hasn't made a huge difference. What I've noticed is the bike can run without the airbox on. It keeps a reasonably good idle. But as soon as I put the airbox on, it's back to stalling after a few seconds. But I can keep it running if I spray just a tiny amount of brake fluid where the intake is. So that would confirm my theory that this bike may be running lean. Not sure why yet, we're gonna get to that. Could be the fuel pump, fuel filter maybe is clogged up, maybe the fuel injector, or maybe the bike ECU is telling it to run lean for some reason. So even though I can't get any live data with the scan tool from this bike, I still want to see what's going on. I've got a scope here which I'm going to try to use to read the value of the O2 sensor. So yeah, let's do that next and see what we find out. So I've removed the shield now, and I can get access to my O2 sensor connector. I'm just going to pull the insulation back a bit, and you can see we've got two white wires, grey and a black. So in this case, two white wires are most likely for the O2 heater. Grey one is ground, and the black is our signal wire, the one we want to probe. So I'm just going to get a back probe and gently insert it between the wire and the weather seal. Don't want to pierce it, I just want to put the wire there. And when I take it back out, it's going to close the gap again. And yeah, ensure it's waterproof. So I'm going to grab one lead from my scope and put it on the clip. And for the other one, I've got a clip here with a battery ground. I'm just going to connect these two together. And that's it. My scope should be set up now. So I've got my Pico scope open. And what I'm going to do now is do some settings. I know I'm using channel A. So I'm just going to pick a bigger time frame so I can actually see what's going on. I'll leave this to plus or minus 1 volt because that's what we're measuring. So it cleans up most of the noise. I'm measuring DC, and that's about it. I'll leave channel B off for now. So yeah, we see we're at 0 volts. 1 volt is the maximum I can get from my sensor, so I should be somewhere in the middle, but I'm expecting to be quite low. And what I'm going to do is just spray some brake cleaner on the intake side and see if the O2 sensor picks up the artificial enrichment of the fuel mixture. Let's see how that goes. So the sensor's warmed up now. It's actually responding a bit better. So we can see it drop. It's a very lean mixture. Spray some brake cleaner. It goes back to 1 volt. So the way the ECU adjusts the fuel mixture is by changing the opening time on the injector. So the injector gets constant pressure, the opening time, or the time it actually stays open, varies. So I want to see if the ECU is actually reacting and trying to correct the lean mixture, or to correct the rich mixture I'm inducing. So I've unplugged the injector connector, I've back probed one of the wires, and I'm going to plug this back. So this will be my channel B. So I just want to see when I enrich the mixture whether this is shortening its opening times, and when it's running lean if it's trying to extend its open time. So yeah, let's see what we can find out. So that's about 2.5 milliseconds in a rich running condition, and that's about 3.4 milliseconds in a lean running condition. So it would appear that the management side of our fuel system is working correctly, but there's just one last thing I'd like to check before I move on to measuring the fuel pressure, and that is having a look at the temperature sensor. There's an intake temperature sensor here, and although it's not a great test in the sense that I'm not sure if it's working properly, but I just want to see if it is working and if it's reacting to warm air. So let's have a look at that. So I've got the intake tube right here with the sensor inside. got two alligator clips on the pins and a multimeter hooked up to it, set to resistance. So basically this sensor is a thermistor. So the way it works is based on the temperature, it varies its resistance. So we're measuring 1.9 kilo ohm right now. So if I just use a heat gun, obviously don't go crazy, this is meant to measure air temperature, so it's not very hot. But just put a bit of warm air inside and see if the resistance changes. Let's do that. So you can see it react very quickly. It was 1.9, it's now 1.81. Try again. 1.73. So it takes a bit of time to get back to its original value, but it looks like it's reacting to the heat. So yeah, this seems to be a functioning sensor. Don't know if it's good because I'm not sure what values it's supposed to have, but it seems to be functioning. So we're getting close to finding our problem now, I believe. I'm going to check the fuel pressure, and you might say I should have started with this. You're probably right. But if I would have found a problem at the beginning of this video, it would have been pretty pointless to check all the other stuff. So I thought it would make it a bit more interesting. So I got a fuel pressure gauge here and a little T-connector with a bit of hose. So I'm going to take the hose off the injector, plug this one on, put the hose coming from the pump here, or coming from the filter, and this is where I connect my pressure gauge. So this way I can see what pressure we have while the bike is running. So here we are, ready to go. Might have to prime the system, but we've got this little button on the side to release pressure. And yeah, pressure should be around 50 psi. So let's see what we've got. So we don't have a fuel pressure issue, but I didn't expect there to be one. Reason being, the bike only struggles when it's idling. As soon as you rev it up, and you obviously need more fuel flow, the mixture gets richer. So based on that, you could say the main problem isn't your fuel pressure, it must be something else. So next thing is to take off the injector. So here we are, I've got the injector out, and you've seen the spray pattern on that piece of cardboard. So it would seem like this is working. It's definitely not burnt out. It is clicking as it should, it's opening, and it's spraying, although a little bit unbalanced. You can see one side is spraying better than the other. But it is a working injector, so how can you prove this is faulty? Well, you can measure the resistance. It should be 15 ohms for this one, which I've checked, and it's about 16 point something, so it's fairly close. But another thing you should find, and I found that by looking at the part number on the side. You probably can't see it because it's too small, so I'm not going to bother. But yeah, look at the part number, try to find a data sheet for it online. So I managed to find the flow rate for this injector. So this should be 315 cc's per minute at 3 bar. So that would be a good way to check. Keep it pressurized at 3 bar, open it, and see if, I don't know, you don't have to keep it open for a full minute. Try maybe 10, 20, 30 seconds and see how much fuel you get. And that gives you a good indication of its flow rate, if it's close to what it should be, or if this injector is clogged up. So here's the plan. I'm going to keep the injector open for 20 seconds. At 315 cc's per minute, in 20 seconds I should get 105 cc's. I've got this measuring jug here. 105 is right there, so that's the aim to get there. So a good injector would get there. I'm expecting ours will be quite a bit lower. So yeah, that's how I measured the quantity. I've got my fuel filter right there. I've hooked up my fuel pressure gauge back so I can monitor the fuel pressure. We're at 3 bar right now. I've got my injector here and 2 clips on it. I'm just gonna keep the jug under it. So that's the fuel side of it. Now the electrical side may look trickier, but it's quite easy, so just follow me. So let's start off with the ground. I've got one ground wire on the battery going to this clip here. I'm not sure what this clip does, but this was put on ground and I had to take it off, so I just gave it a ground from somewhere else. So from here, one wire goes to my injector. Doesn't matter which terminal, because there is just a coil. It's fine either way. And the other one, the red one, takes a ground to my fuel pump. Now the fuel pump will run for about a second when you turn on the bike, and then you have to try to start it for it to actually do something. So in our case, as soon as we open the injector, the pump's not going to run and it's just going to lose pressure. So I have to feed it externally. So I've got one ground there. The pump does care which way you hook these up. And that's it for the ground side. Now for the power side, I wanted to turn both my injector and my fuel pump on at the same time so I can keep a constant pressure. And what I've done is I took out the starter relay, which is right here, really accessible. I took off one of the terminals and I hooked my 2 alligator clips onto it. One of them goes straight to the injector and one of them goes to the positive side on my fuel pump. So as soon as I press the starter button, the starter isn't going to turn because it's disconnected, but my injector and my fuel pump are going to run together. So to time it, I'm going to use my phone, which I'm using to control my GoPro right now. I'm gonna start the timer. At 10 seconds I'm gonna press the start button, keep it for 20 seconds, and yeah, when the timer hits 30 seconds I'm gonna take it off. So yeah, let's do that and see what we get. So I've done this test 3 times just to make sure I get consistent results, and each time I get the same amount of fuel. So this is the result. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but that's just a bit under 120 cc's or milliliters, which is not what I expected. It seems like this injector has more flow than it actually needs, unless the information I found is incorrect. So at this point I'm quite a bit puzzled, because everything we checked seems to be fine, but the bike isn't running right. So let's see what we can do next. Well, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful for you. So I haven't fixed the bike yet, but because this video was getting quite long, I've decided to cut this here. Although I said at the beginning of this video that this might be the last on the BMW, there are actually 2 more coming. There's part 2 of this video, and there's another video on valve clearance. So yeah, look out for that, and consider subscribing for more motorcycle related content. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.